Hi there, Randy Green here. It is January 5th and you have just got the update from the whole Changemaker project on food, health and environment, which of course plays a role in the toolkit combinations, including probably later on courses on business structures and business ideas. But here we'll move into the soft version of it, the startup version of going to the text material. I am on page 4 now, where I want to look a little bit into what we could say, the rules of engagement. Sorry about that. I'm scrolling down here. The rules of engagement, in the context of the 5th cycle architectural work. And that's why I put in the updates that I've made as well, because now we are in 2023 and the last course material, where I worked on page 3 and before that was made in the end of 2022. So you kind of have this transition from the 4th cycle and into the 5th cycle. And that's a good place to begin, because there you kind of have the ground or the settings of what's the baseline here. What is it that we're working, where we're working from, how we're working. And again, here I want to address as well the progression sciences, as I explained in the previous podcast on kickstarting the food, health and environment project, were centered around the 4th cycle, vibrational field. So I assume that you are mastering that to the degree that you can, whatever that means. So here we're going into the 5th cycle with the radiation energies. That's a mental field, the higher order sciences, viewing reality from the perspective of, for now, unfortunately, the humanoid, again, the humanoid angle. I would love to do it from the true human angle, but the true human angle is in all ways and forms covered in the template sciences and the transition sciences, as in we work to transform energy, we work to live by the principles and the rules of engagement and the laws of reality field under the ancient ones, which I explained here and there and many other places. We do this to transform energy, always transform energy. Our purpose is not profit. Our purpose is transformation of energy for the highest good of the many. The highest good of the many is always the construction. The highest good of the many is always the reality field, which I also explain in the HOSE, or the High Order Systemic Energetic Awareness forum material on the new reality challenges of the Stargates, where I go into kind of a little bit more detailed understanding, okay, what is our reality field then? And then it's like working from the concepts as we have in general sciences, where we talk about reality as based upon quantum fields that ignites and spawns and supports the atoms and the subparticles and the molecular state and everything that's in reality, which is based upon probabilities and possibilities and emptiness and nothingness. And how can that even become a manifest reality, right? So that's kind of that understanding. It does not mean much. So I recommend you also do, if you have not already done the challenges in the Sun course material, you should definitely also do the challenges of the Stargate course material, because there I go into the new level of understanding of reality field. Whereas in the time matrix, we had the 4th cycle, transgression, progression, spiral, and these dynamics under the colonizers. And at the end of the day, they did not harvest, so to speak, transgression rates because they were using grace and what have you. They were not really affected by karma, but we were, big degree and to a large degree. And that's why we got distortion. That's why we've got energetic parasites. That's why we've got all these things and residuals that we need to clear up and all of these kind of things. And that's some of the things we are shedding off and are not taking with us into the 5th cycle perception of reality. Those of you who are part of the test projects, you would have already undergone a molecular reconstruction and upgrading. Those of you who are stuck in the 4th cycle and have no viability rate thereof, interest of the 5th cycle races, you will unfortunately not have been gifted with that molecular upgrade, whether it's for our best benefit or it's not. That's always up to discussion. I never know. I have no say in it. I can say, no, I don't want it, which I did to begin with. I said, I don't want it. And they said, well, you need it. And I said, so say you. And then they said, yes, so say we. So that's the weird 5th cycle non-consent, as in kind of, I have no say saying it, they're doing it to me anyways, but I'm not consenting. I'm not saying, oh yeah, cool, I'm in. No, I'm actually saying, so do you claim, and they say, so do we claim, or so say you, and they say, so say we. So that is that concord where they know that they are doing stuff to me I don't want, but the fifth cycle races perceive us the same way as we perceive animals in a zoo or children or what have you. They don't really consider us to be in charge of anything, and thereby they do what they feel is best for us. The parental approach. And we can always discuss that. And until further notice, we'll just say, yeah, I don't agree with this one. I do not give my consent to any of this. And I'm not sure you are on the right side of things. And I'm not sure you have that superiority issue, so to speak, angle that is the right approach to what I need and where I do not need. So my angle on this one is that this is happening to me, as in this is what they're doing. That's the left side of me they have recalibrated. The right side of me is still under my own projects. And I will then work extensively with my version of reality, my approach to reality, my approach to how I want things to be, my approach according to the original pillar project, fifth cycle, which I'm rebuilding and reconstructing and trying to activate in my architectural sphere that is around as part of my energy system, so that eventually I can push the others out by saying, well, I've actually made something that's better. I've used the sciences in a correct way. I have shown, I have grown, I have matured on my own behalf, by my own exemplification, by my own devices. And by that, you no longer have the parental rights to decide over me. You must let me go because I'm now a full mature being, a full grown being. So that's the game that we're in the fifth cycle. So just approach this from the angle of parents. And we can all agree on, most of us that are quite individualistic and are born old souls, that we often feel that we are actually more mature than our parents, that we are actually more in charge of things than our parent. And yet there are certain things we don't know of yet, which we then discover. And then we, via discovering that, we're not saying, oh yeah, our parents did the right thing. On the contrary, but then we know why our parent did the things, but we can still say, yeah, I don't agree on your methods. You could have done that better. You were not really seeing me. You were seeing your project. You're not really working with me as a human being. You were working with your ideas of what a good parent was, more than actually seeing me and helping me and assisting me in my growth processes. You were not my mentor. You were my supervisor. So there's a huge difference there, right? So with that, again, also from the parental perspective, it is kind of mom and dad are looking at their children and say, well, we have this household. These are the dynamics. These are the rules of this house. This is how we do it here, according to what they have learned and what they feel is the right thing to do, what their parents did to them, what they have experienced in life, and what they have come up with the decisions of what's the right and wrong approach to how children should be brought up. So now we got that in context using that analogy. So that means that, as we have done with our parents, we disagree, but we agree to disagree. And then we are living in that household until we're old enough to move out of the household. And once we then are in the transition of moving out, we are having discussions with our parents. We are trying to show them that we can stand on our own 2 feet. We try to get rid of their curling methods. We try to get rid of their supervision methods and their constant interfering and calling us and doing stuff that we don't want them to do, to put it in that context. And then eventually get to the point where we are old enough to say, mom or dad, mostly moms, right? But kind of butt off, because I'm old enough now to take care of myself. I appreciate what you have done. We're saying that to be kind, even though we kind of not really mean it, but we're doing that to be kind because we don't want to hurt our feelings, right? And then we kind of say, but I would like us to not, however we're going to put it, if it were me, I'm this kind of, the way I did it with my own mom, just put that in context. I took the time, I worked my way out of her entanglement for years. Some of it via some pretty severe crashes, and some of it because I went to Australia, which then meant that she was no longer in contact with me, and then she turned to my sister. But the thing that actually changed the whole picture was that my mom, as you know, in 2019 had a heart attack and died, and what was in her left, and what is now in her something else. And then she stopped nagging me and being all over the place, and she is now only aligned with my sister that kind of wanted my mom to return, and by that came under a different type of grey project, where they returned something. They revived the body, but put something else in it. But my sister's happy, so that's what counts. So they have now got their own little family unit, and I'm completely free of the family program. So, but I can't expect others to have that kind of weird experience, right? So there are no easy solutions to how you manage that. And my best suggestion is to downsize when talk-based program relations as part of the 4th cycle, minimize to the degree you can. And then from time to time, you will have to talk to these people, but then know that there has to be done some clearing work so you don't get sucked back into the 4th cycle. So this is a new approach as well. Or you can just do the clean cut and then that's it. But most people today have this kind of responsibility rate left. And we can always discuss, is it good or bad to completely disconnect? It depends on the relationship with our parents or the family members or what have you. And it depends on what faction they're part of. So that's some of the rules of engagement in the context of the 5th cycle. Because if we are amongst people that are still in the 4th cycle, then unfortunately, we must play by the rule book of the 4th cycle races, the rules of engagement of the 4th cycle races. And that is going to be a bit of a shit show. Let me just put it that way. So that's the difficult. That's the warring, that's the testing, that's the trialing, that's, yeah, you're in our jurisdiction, you're connecting to our projects on the 4th cycle, the POM races, the Phantom Matrix. And by that, they will show you very clearly that unless you want to be entangled due to the law participation, unless you want to be dragged back into the 4th cycle, you've got 40 minutes conversation, or you've got 10 minutes conversation, or you're allowed to go in and out, but then you need to leave, or you can stay here for a day, but then you have to leave, or these kind of things. You will get the insight as in kind of, yeah, we'll give you that green card for that period of time. But if you extend that one, then we will harvest you. We'll pull you back in, create clones of you because we have warned you. So that's how that one's going to go. And my suggestion to you guys out there and girls, don't test these groups. It's not worth it. Don't even try to think that you can worm your way around these. When you get the warning, follow through. Just say, yes, sir. This is not even up to discussion. That's not even up to you kind of, yeah, perhaps if I do this and that, whatever, with your human mind, you can worm your way around it, because you have to keep in mind alien technology, prohibiting technology, enslavement technology, shit show technology. They have got access to that. You do not. Okay. So this is not where you put up a riot and you pick your fights. And that's why I'm saying in this instance, including when we begin to talk about projects, or we want to work with communities or other people, or we want to go out there and we want to sell an item we have created or need some kind of technology or whatever, has always to be done from the angle of double awareness. There is no base program approach to any humans the moment we go further into 2023. So that means that for those of us who are deep in the test or pilot projects, we will be pushed together of others that are under the same pilot projects or a variation of the pilot project of the 5th cycle. So that will be easier, as in kind of, yeah, we are pushed in the direction where we need to go. We get the instructions. And if we don't, we get mind wiped. And then we wake up with the ideas, oh yeah, I need to do that, or I need to check that, or I need to go to that website, or I need to whatever, as I'm already experiencing, right? So it's not as in kind of, that's why I say they're a little bit curling parents, because they are literally telling me what to do from A to Z. So I get to the reality network that's part of the internet. So I get to the right website. So I get to the right community. So I get to the right people that they will push our way, where we will then begin to unfold the new 5th cycle architecture. Those who are under the 4th cycle, you will be directed into more shit show, into more negative alien agenda, into more falling angelics, into more transhuman agenda, into more whatever that will, the purpose will there not to make you progress, the purpose will there make to harvest you to the ground. In my humble opinion, you figure out yourself where you want to go, either the hard way, by learning the lessons, by being slammed and smacked because you want to keep up your base program ideas of what is possible and not, and because you want to have this kind of idea of, yeah, I have my rights to do what I want to do, right? But the moment you begin to understand, yeah, you never had them to begin with, You had pseudo rights, you had pseudo free will, you had pseudo free will, you had pseudo autonomy, sorry, I can't say it, but you were kind of a being in yourself. You thought you actually had choices where you could do what you wanted to do, because if you had a brilliant idea, you thought you could push it through. But you will discover, as we're moving further into the future here under the fourth cycle, which we're already seeing, you are living in a world with Berufsverbot, where everything will be controlled by different forms of draconian methods of what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. And you might think, oh, I can do whatever. I can go on this platform or that platform or whatever on the internet, and they claim that I'm allowed to do this or that or whatever. And I can only say to all of you guys and girls out there, there is nothing on the internet that is not under complete scrutiny of the different alien factions. It might not be under complete scrutiny of humans, but when we talk about alien technology, they have control of every single thing inside the enclosure now. So that means that you might be allowed to do whatever you want to do, but there's a price to pay. And that price is typically when you engage in different platforms. If they are under one of these factions, they will take this as a type of consent. Once you either pay for it or you engage in it, even though it's for free. If you engage in it, if you use their services, you are then giving consent to them also doing the exchange rate, as in, we have offered this to you for free. So now we change what we take what we feel is the correct exchange for our services. So I would be very careful with what is given out for free, because there's at least a rule that if you pay for it, you trade, and then the exchange rate is to the amount of money that's given. And if they exceed the amount of money and also harvest you to the ground, then you can trial them. So the whole plot is, that's a very difficult environment to drive business in. That's a very difficult environment to do anything in, right? That's how the world suddenly is going to be. So this is where the inner sight becomes very important as well, that once you get, if you get a gray in your living room, you know, that's the palm races that are entering, or you need to know what you're dealing with. You need to know what groups you're dealing with, and all of these kind of things. And I'll talk about some of that as well in the Stargate material. And at some point later on, might go into the classification of the different groups and what they are and what they are not. But since, as I explained in the Stargate material, that's completely impossible, but it's not just about, oh, these are the Orions or these are the whatever, because that's our words, labels, categories that have been promoted as a part of distortion system that has very little to do with the actual realities. So this is also some of the issues that we are going into when we begin to talk about what's going on then. So how do we prepare? And that's the rules of engagement. And I would say the best way is to literally deal with what's in front of you. I always said that, but here even more so, because in the fifth cycle, the code streams work differently. The resonance fields in the fifth cycle is called resonance field. That's the holographic radiation vibration energies. When they work correctly with consciousness, they become resonance fields. And in that, we have sound waves and we have light waves and we have consciousness potentials and we have holographic network and holographic grid work, the original construction properties, the original ways realities work. And that will ripple into our physicality inside the enclosure. So the main goal of the fifth cycle is to begin to implement the fifth cycle into the enclosure. So we become what we could call seeders or rods or staff holders or whatever the different groups call us. They have different names for it, all depending on what project you're under. So all that together as in kind of, they will allow you to do your own thing to a certain degree, all depending again on which project you are under. It depends on how harsh they are, even though they're a new version of whatever. Then they still have their way of what they are doing, why they are contributing to the fifth cycle in this reality field. They still have their projects. It's like being part of a company as well. That's their company, that's their culture, that's how they run their business. And if we apply and get a job there, we are under these rules and under these laws. Or if we kind of get dragged into it and we don't really know what we're dealing with, but at least they pay our income, right? So at some point we will discover whether or not we actually want to continue to be part of that business. And I'm here using an analogy or we want to get out. And that's where I have not yet come to the point where I feel it's necessity to get out of a project. And as I said, with some of the things that have been done to me, as I kind of say, I don't want to be part of it. And they say, well, you have to by law. And I say, so say you. And they say, so say we. And then that kind of strands there, right? So I haven't yet figure out whether it's a good idea or a bad idea or whatever it is, but at least there's not the same amount of harvesting there has been in the transition between 2022 and now, as I got rid of the last affiliation with the old 4th cycle projects. They were hard on me, let me put it that way. But the more we move into the 5th cycle, the less they will have the energetic and genetic affinity with our energy system. And that's why it's also important when we talk about if we want to stay in the 5th cycle, although now on the test projects and pilot projects and what have you that are not of our own choice, well, that's where we are. That's the reality. That's the fact. That's how things are. And we can scream and we can yell and we can shout at the wind and we do whatever, but it still rains and we have no control of the rain yet. So that's kind of where we say, okay, well, then how do I learn to get control of the rain? So that's the strategy. And we know how that can change. We know that some of the groups that are here can leave and others come in and then new rules and new engagements and new things that we need to deal with. So that's the future for those of us who have the true activation potentials or have a viability rate that allows us to move into the 5th cycle. So is what it is. We are in the enclosure. You're not free in the enclosure. Of course, you're not free in the other domains as things are now in our system. Unless you get out of this physical form, that means the analogy of the zoo, the animal in the zoo, or the animal park. I always pronounce the word zoo the wrong way, at least, but the animal zoo where animals live in the enclosure, even though they roam the enclosure, they get themselves freed and move into the woods, they will discover, I don't really know how to live in the wilderness because I was born in the enclosure. So there is a learning process that needs to be done there as well. So with all of that said, not that we are letting go of what we could say our attempt to claim sovereignty and to develop sovereignty. On the contrary, as always, we are saying, this is what is, this is what we're dealing with. Then how do we deal with it so we can mature and still do the progression sciences our way under the D14 collective, which are taking the time to explain to you in the transition sciences, as well as in the template sciences and all of these progression dynamics, which are getting you out of the 4th cycle. And now we are moving into, okay, in the 5th cycle, the way to get out of the programs or the way to excel in the programs will be to learn to use the sciences. Learn to play alongside with whoever's there, as in, that's why the parental analogy was good, because they are right now acting as our parents, whether we will it or not, be good or bad parents, what have you. But the only way for us to get out of that clutch, that grip, is to mature, is to grow, and is to show that, yes, I am a citizen on equal rights as you are. I know these sciences. I know how to operate. I know how to work with these things. And by that, claim sovereignty by exemplification, by living by it, by being it, by excelling in all of the challenges that they give you, and all of their supervision and what they give of information. You choose, you react in a mature way, you process the information in a mature way, you make the choices in a mature way, as parents would do with us, or at least the practice I have done with my offspring. So the rules of engagement are not only aimed at how we behave and act around other people. Clearly, that's the progression sciences, which we already work with. But they also determine the energetic outcome of how we utilize the energies of our energy system, the life force this produces, and its counterpart as a racial lineage pattern within the racial grids. The rules of engagement has far more implications than we think. It's not just about being compassionate. It's not just about acting the right way amongst our physical base program moms and dads. It's not just about how we behave when we're around other people, because that's a simple thing. Loving kindness, always loving kindness. It's as simple as that. Just go in with the approach of innocence, go in with the approach of this as until otherwise proven, is a human that is in most cases are a kind person I will treat in the loving kind way, but at the same time also being enormously observant of that probably behind is a fourth cycle type of entity, things that's going on there. And to begin with, you have that weird being loving kind, but at the same time, you're being highly cynical. So when you have the human in front of you, you always treat the human in front of you as a nice person, because most people actually are. If you approach with loving kindness and a kind attitude, they will respond as the animals they are, sorry for saying so, in a kind manner as well. But if it's a being that is off-world, integrated into that human form, then even though you approach it with loving kindness, then you will get the energetic attack, or you will get the energetic whatever's going on. So you need to have that weird double awareness where you act loving kindly, but at the same time you're complete alert, you're complete observant, and you are absolutely in the now. You use and practice mindfulness, as in you're seeing this as with fresh eyes. You are observing everything. It will take an enormous amount of energy from you, of course, because you have to be vigilant. You have to be on top of all the levels of what's going on, of all the layers of what is unfolding in front of you. You might think, oh yeah, I'm just in the mall and paying the cashier or getting my groceries or whatever. Yeah, not necessarily. Depends on if they have decided to give you a learning lesson where they're testing your abilities to observe reality, shifting you into a different timeline. You were there in the mall yesterday, but now it's a different version of the mall because they shifted it. That means that yesterday the cashier that looked the same way were a human. Today it's a clone with different features, and onward and so forth. So thereby the rules of engagement is suddenly really being used in the fifth cycle to re-engineer our energy system. It's really being used to upgrade the molecular state of our physicality. So that you can say, well, that actually makes life more interesting. Or you could say you can do the negative, put the negative hat on and say that makes life so much more complicated. You decide yourself. I would say both, right? It makes it more complicated, but everything that's complicated is only complicated because you're out of practice. So if you train it and you practice it and you learn to be observant, you learn to not go in blindfolded because your mind is everywhere else, but you're always present in the now, then you also have a larger potentiality for transforming energy of the situation. If you're completely focused in the now and not having that kind of you're thinking about a project when you go into a shop or whatever, you need, the moment you enter into a different setting, go through a door, whatever that is, or cross a weird branch on the ground, or you pass a rock, or you see a symbol, or something drives by, or a fly comes into your field, or whatever it is, you know that's a shift of energy. So it's no longer permitted, to use that word, to go blindfolded through life as we've done in the base program. Now you show scientific approach to reality with the observer point of view of transforming everything that comes your way. If not necessarily reality around you, but the architecture of your energy system by viewing everything that happens as a learning lesson of a different type of reality setup. Holographic teaching in real life. So that's the new way, including the rules of engagement. And the reason why they're doing that is because in the fifth cycle, the original lineages must be activated. So that means our racial DNA, our racial genetics. And I'm beginning more and more to fuse in racial DNA, because as we shift our molecular state that are based upon frequency DNA, our frequency DNA will be merged with our consciousness units, the genetics of the original middle domain, reality fields, fifth cycle version in the outer domain. And that means that our DNA will shift into the outer domain type of DNA in density 1. And that is going to be a different type of molecular structure, which we will see energetically in our energy system, how that applies to our physicality as well as our 3 lower fields. And that's the density 1 reconfiguration. That material I'm working on, I will probably not launch it until I fully feel that, yes, this is not just adaptation processes done by upgrading technology of the fifth cycle incoming races, but actually something we have control of. So that right now it's happening by them being our quote unquote supervisors, doing the transition for us and by us and with us, teaching us how to do that. But then later on, we can go in and say, okay, now this has happened to us. So how do we then reconfigure to the fifth cycle of the original construction under the ancient one? As always, we need to have something to play ball up against before we know what to do. And you can say, well, I could go use the fourth cycle energies to play ball into the fifth cycle of the original construction. And then I'll have to say, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that, because the fourth cycle inside the enclosure is part of the prohibiting, hijacking, colonizing races. So you're comparing to something that was so demolished that is of no use. So that's why I'm just kind of, I know what's going on, but I'm serving it. I am dealing with it. I'm making sure that they know I'm not interested. But as again, these little shenanigans with, yeah, so say you, so say we kind of thing. They know I'm not interested, but they also know, yeah, what choice do I have? And you can say, well, that's a manipulation. They manipulated their mind, so you think you don't have any choice. And we can always go into all mental spin-offs and say what ifs and who and what and whatever. And I suggest just here kind of the basic understanding I get compared to all of the other things I've been going through. It is a very neutral type of interaction right now as things are. It doesn't feel harmful. I don't feel completely bogged down, harvested, drained. I actually feel there's something I can do. I feel I do have a little bit of choice to go on with here. They know what I can do. Perhaps that's my leverage. That's perhaps why it's different for me than for some of you guys and girls out there. So again, we cannot use my energy system as an exemplification of how you can do it. You must find your own ways, because that's part of the fifth cycle. Be standing sovereign means to stand in your own energy system, your own sphere of energy, your own architecture, which you have created. It's nothing about I stand sovereign because I'm connected to the crystal's energies under the crystalline Syrian bees, or because I'm part of source or whatever that's been put out there by the crystallines, right? And I'm alluding here to some of the material that has been promoted so far, where standing sovereign means to be part of the Christ consciousness. That is not how I perceive it, even though that's their version of the fifth cycle consciousness potentials. But I have a different approach to that, as you know. So whenever we interact with any version of life force and energy, be it a human, another life form, or whatever we are encountering, the rules set the standards for the ways we should behave to keep the life force pure in us and in others. So that's the optimal outcome for all involved. Sometimes keeping the life force pure, if you are encountering a human with a dark one inside, then as I did a releaser, well, then it was always either as a warning, and then the dark one would pull back, and then I would just be dealing with the human, but I would have got the warning, yeah, you got 10 minutes here, and then I come back in, and then you better not be there, otherwise I will do stuff to you that's unpleasant, right? Because the dark ones can have quite a lot of power. And then if it were some of the insectoid races or whatever, then if it was a release, well, then the purity was that ant wanted to be released. And that's the highest purity rate, taking out the ant, letting it go, dissolving, deleting, whatever was necessary as a releaser. And many of you are not doing that thing. So again, when we talk about keeping the life force pure, for most of you guys and girls out there that are not a releaser, that is not a redeemer for the dark ones, releaser from the colonizing races that got stuck here under the enslavement programs. For those of you not part of that kind of agenda, have that shitty job, well, the keeping the life force pure, the best way is loving kindness. As I used to teach in my older material, right? I used to teach that. Back then, those of you remember, both, it's also in my free material, actually kind of loving kindness, always approach from loving kindness. You could call it compassion if you like, but compassion is kind of feeling with, and there's a little bit condescending kind of, yeah, poor you, right? So this is not. Loving kindness means that, and I would say again, when I say loving kindness, I made a little bit of podcast on that one. Do I mean loving as in love in that manner that we love each other and we should treat each other from the angle of love? What is love? So I would rather say that we have this approach of non-harm kindness until otherwise proven. Because if you are being shitstormed and attacked, of course, then no harm means that also goes your way, that no harm will come to you. So you are allowed to defend yourself according to principle 2, which I have discussed many other places as well. So the rules and how we utilize them to achieve the high standards determine the energetic result we attain in all of our interactions, along with amplifying or the opposite, the vibration energies in our heart field. So if you are in that engagement with some kind of shitty entity in the human form, they will do whatever they can to target your heart field and downsize it and take over it and shitstorm it and create residuals in it and dark codes and what have you, which is why when we talk about encountering with some of the falling angelics or the dark ones in human form, it's not worth it, people, because the moment you interact with them, the dark codes will ripple into your heart field. Now in the fifth cycle, where these things happen right away, instant kick in the heart field, where they then can connect, put in symbols, put in shit stuff that will allow them to attach themselves to you and drain you from energy. Even though they're still in their other form, they will still take what they can of your energy via your heart field, making you sad, making you depressed, making you aggressive, making you this and making you that, and linking you up to the 7Ds. So that's the new challenges of the fifth cycle, where, yeah, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. We want to be kind people, but now, yes, in the fourth cycle, it was mainly the colonizing races, and that was a little bit, yeah, not so nice, right? Then you had greys and ants and whatever. They would harvest you for a while, create clones, you got rid of the clones, and then you would be out of it, because at the end of the day, they just wanted a portion of your genetics, consciousness units, and you can recreate them. But in the fifth cycle, we're also dealing with the phantom matrix, dark ones, and what's linked up there, AI, what have we, and that means that we are being much, much more careful in who we engage with, what we engage with. And as you also need to understand is that your best buddy while you're in the fourth cycle actually might be something completely different once you link up to the fifth. So that means we can no longer just say, oh yeah, that used to be my best buddies. Yeah, now you're in the fifth cycle. So now you got the fifth cycle version of your best buddy that might in the fourth cycle actually be a wolf in sheep's clothing, having that front that presented to be this nice Pleiadian and what have you, or that nice kind gal and guy and what have you, being this spiritual teacher, meditation practitioner, yoga practitioner, sustainable energy, CEO, health system front, whatever, environmental project, NGO. And then you go into the fifth cycle and you see, yeah, what's on top of that one is probably not what I have been lollified into believing in La La Land of the fourth cycle, right? So this is where we always mindfully go in and say, well, fourth cycle approach, loving kindness, no harm unless otherwise proven, but with whatever's in front of us in organic form, but we are observant of everything else that goes on. And we take the warnings, we understand what that implies, and we just say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, not a battle to take. Pick your fights. Enormously important. Even though we say, oh, I really want to work with that business. It seems so nice. They have all of this front that is so, the words are right. They have the right value system. They show themselves to be this and that and whatever. And that's why you just have to learn. Yeah, wolves, they have learned to dress themselves in sheep's clothing. They know how this works. They're not stupid. Crying out loud. So of course they market themselves that way. Of course they have this, like you have this meat eating flower that I don't think they're pretty, but you can say they look pretty, right? Or an orchid, that kind of flower that is actually living in the jungle, and it creates itself all sorts of parasitic vines that links up to a tree or whatever. It's a parasitic flower, even though you say, oh, it's so pretty. Yeah, it's a parasite, energetic parasite. And an orchid, when you look at it energetically, it's actually a dark version, a dark one in a flower form. It looks pretty, but it's poisonous. So that's also important to understand when we work with different projects, that it might look nice, but that's not the same as it is nice. So that's important to understand. And when we worked in the fourth cycle, we could say it affected our heart field, and we were vibrationally pulled down into different emotional features. In the fifth cycle, the game is the mind field. So that means that if you connect to something that has a code of the opposition or the polarity in the fifth cycle, then you will create the opposition right away being in contact with it. So it is far more dangerous, far more complicated, and has far more ramifications to not follow the warnings. And that's why you get the warnings in the fifth cycle, because that's part of the rules of engagement in the fifth cycle. You will get the warnings. You can either get them as if you enter into any jurisdiction, whatever there is, there will always be either a bird, or there will be a fly, or there will be, all depending on which group we're talking about. The color of the bird will tell you which group you're dealing with. There will be a tree that's off. There will be this weird comprised, dense type of energy that tells you entering into another jurisdiction. You will feel a little bit off. You will feel, this feels a little bit different. And then normally what people do, they just override. No, because I want to go there. No, that's why I'm going to do that kind of, nope, you stop out right there. You stop yourself. You do a frontal lobe. You know, energy is different. What is this energy? Am I welcome here? You literally ask, am I welcome here? And you will get the push right away. No. And then you just turn around. You don't pursue your great, brilliant base program human idea. You turn around and turn the other cheek and go another direction. Sucks. I know, but that's the game. If you go into a shop and I really want to buy that, they're the only ones that got it. The moment you enter into the shop and you get that kind of push, you just get, dang it, not today. Oh yeah, what are the numbers of today? Oh yes, the 8th. Duh. Then that shop is under the Orion energy, so the Orion conglomerate or whatever. Come back later on the 14th when someone else on a lesser hostile page are owning the shop that day, because even though it's the same humans in the shop, the energies, the one behind the shop will be different from day to day. That sucks too, but that's the new reality. That's how it works. So these are the new version of the rules of engagement, where you understand, yeah, well then correct self-mastery, self-responsibility, and self-expression and self-containment plus suddenly gets completely different understanding, right? Self-mastery means that you are in reality that you now know can shift from day to day. Walmart, one day is not Walmart the other day. That little shop is not the same tomorrow as it was today. So if you have business to do on one day, you kind of feel when you go to the city or you do whatever you do, or you connect to the business partner or whatever you're doing, or you have this kind of arrangement with some kind of business that need to produce a gadget for you or something, then you arrange meetings on days that you kind of know by experience are less hostile than on days, for instance, the 2nd, the 2nd, the 5th, the 8th, the 13th, the 15th, the 17th can become difficult as well. The 18th, these are days where, whether it's in the number combination of the day itself, or it's on the vibrational field, or it's in the mental field level, if you kind of have a combination of, let's say, as we have today, 5, 6, 13. Well, 13 is the mental field. That means all of the old, that's why I'm making this one where I'm tearing down all the old belief systems and recreating them, making that choice on the vibrational field to reconnect to the fifth cycle, which then leads to, at the end of the day, manifestation into the fifth cycle, which means I reoriented myself today by making this course material and making a course direction and course correction that is in alignment with the fifth cycle, because it's the fifth day that is part of the fifth cycle and the fifth year. So this is where we go into that one. I know 2023 is technically a 7, but the year itself is a 5. So that's where I really kick in the first day 5 in the year 5 in the fifth cycle. That's the trinity of number 5 that really kick in then. That's why the top number is 13, where you demolish everything you have had, you make that choice, and that's it. And then tomorrow it will be the 6 in the base program, where you will then make other choices, and then it will be 6, 7, 14. That means that now today I make the choices, I demolish what I used to do, and then tomorrow I'll do the transition and shift up to a higher gear, where the 6 will be the last choices that needs to be the reconnecting, the right, correct partnership, follow the principles. Number 7, then we roll. And number 14 is there, yes, that's where the shift happens completely. And then I am out of the fourth cycle on all levels, and I'm moving into the fifth, also implying the different aspects of the higher order systemic energetic awareness that aligns more with the incoming groups that are coming our way. and are taking over our reality field as part of the fifth cycle. So these are the versions that we're dealing with. When we talk about other signs that you can have out there, you can have drive-bys by cars with symbols on them, logos, brands, whatever, telling you that later on you will encounter this, whatever, digits on your digital clock, things you watch on, if you're kind of, I feel like just doing a little bit of leisure time and you go on YouTube, whatever will be presented to you will have a teaching purpose, or it will have a targeting purpose, or it will have an interception purpose, or it will have some kind of purpose. Nothing is ever random in the fifth cycle. Everything has a purpose that can be either teaching you, or it can be demolishing you, or it can be destroying you, or it can take you back into the fourth cycle. So be observant of your choices now. Use your inner knowledge, principle 5, right? That goes with the fifth cycle. That's where you really master principle 1, 2, 3, and 4. Principle 1, that you are always treating others the way you want to be treated. Principle 2, the energetic balance, as in kind of until otherwise proven, do no harm, do that kind of kindness to whatever comes your way. But if need be, you defend yourself and you do what you need to do to get out of it. You listen to the different signs, you listen to the different warnings. That's principle 3, the law of participation. You get the warning. If you go further, you will be entangled here. You'll become part of this project, because that's how it works in the fifth cycle with the opposition dynamics. That's where we really understand the segregation dynamics of which side of the fence do you belong to. Are you on the light side or on the bright side, or are you on the dark side, right? So that's where you show it by that choice, which leads to principle 4, where the law of reciprocity, where you are, the reality mirrors what you need to work on. Reality mirrors your energy system. Reality mirrors who you are. So if you are still aligned with dark forces or palm races or regress races or fourth cycle things, then you will be dragged into a situation where it's shown to you, you need to clear this, you need to clear that, you need to operate there, you need to do this and whatever to get out of the fourth cycle. So that's the shit storming, but that's a learning process where you transform, and it sucks and it's hard and it's unpleasant. And if you're part of the test pilot or the test projects, then you will have to do it, which I did in December. Literally what I should have achieved from 2007 until 2017 when I went to Australia was then played out within fucking 30 days. So that's the kind of, you're now being pulled out and then everything collapsed. So that's why I say it was a bit of a tough month, right? So that's what happened there. So as well as when we're doing businesses with different partners, keep in mind that the different dates, the different energies determine what kind of experience you will have with that business, because they are, in many ways, the more you get into the fifth cycle, the more you will understand the holographic nature of the enclosure or the reality. We're part of the Truman Show, right? So in the correct self-mastery, I don't need to go into this. You can read that yourself, but now you kind of got a different angle on it, that mastery means you literally know reality is made of energy now, that everything is in polarity dynamics. Everything is about transformation, transmutation. Everything is about the correct choices. Everything is about your inner knowledge. Everything can be taught, worked with as a teaching process, or it could be a demolishing process. It's part of deconstruction, and then you deconstruct and then you reconstruct. That's the mastery. Self-responsibility. You take good care of yourself. Don't be a fool. Don't do fights you don't have to take. Be mindful of your code systems, because in the fifth cycle, if you get dark coded, it is so difficult to get rid of. The game is to take as many viable light codes and change them into dark codes. So that's where you really have self-responsibility. That's where you self-adjust, you self-correct, you make the right choices. You do not repeat your stupidities. You learn by all your stupidities, and you make sure you never ever do them again. Only make the mistake once. Because there is this with the dark ones and these groups. They kind of, you can do it once. But if you do it twice, we own you. So once is allowed, twice you're a fool. And then you have made your own bed. So correct self-expression. That means that whatever we're doing inside the fifth cycle will be a resembling of our architecture. So we build our energetic architecture as an expression of who and what we are inside the base program, the enclosure that will shift into a different type of dynamics because we have a 5th cycle energy system. And there we create the architecture as we like it, following the principles and the rules of engagement, the template sciences, the transformational sciences, the progressive sciences, the rules of engagement of the original races, the pillar project ideologies, and whatever we want to do, knowing that this is the outer domain. We're here to upgrade, to let go, to transform, so we can elevate and follow the dynamics of the cycles. And the deeper aspects of the 5th cycle are also explained in the template sciences, but we also learn by living it, by understanding these new dynamics of scientifically sharpening or sharpness, scientific sharpness in all the things that we are doing, so that we are no longer just trotting along in our own little blind side. And we have a mind field that is super alert, super observing, super investigating, super researching, super everything. And then we adjust the radiation codes, the light codes of our mind field, transforming our neural network into be sharp and agile and functional, working with the 5th cycle energies that will then amplify our vibrational field out of the 4th cycle into a 5th cycle heart field configuration. Self-containment, we have been taught that the last 5 years under the pandemic. If the shit show is on, you self-isolate. If the shit show is on, you don't be out there. If it's a bad day, you don't go out. If it's a chemtrailer day, you stay indoors. If it's kind of the energies are low, you stay indoors. You make sure that you buy as much as you can online. You have as little contact with others. If you have been shitstormed, if you've been around dark ones, if you've been around low-level code systems, you self-contain until you get yourself back on track. And you do not in any ways or forms cause harm unto others, because that's a complete no-go in the 5th cycle. And then once we have mastered these kind of things, when 2026 and until 2029, the community work can be reviewed from the new reality programs. You see, I already put it in there. So because a group amplifies the unwanted levels in its members, so thereby, unless that we are on top of our individual activation and clearing work, then we shouldn't team up with others. So once we have mastered the first 5 principles and the first 5 rules of engagement under the 5th cycle conditions, then we can begin to say, okay, can we team up with other people, put into projects where there are other people under the 5th cycle, team responsibility, work in projects, and as onward and so forth. And these are some of the things that I would like to talk a little bit more about in an individual podcast. That would be part of the next podcast. But once we kind of understand on the factional distress that is there, so that's a little bit as well, as I said, a last bit of the toolkit for the whole change makers is to observe the factional interest in our projects, either blocking them or promoting them. This plays a huge role in how we can get out there and if we succeed or not. So this section in itself is just a thought process and not to find the solutions. That's why I just thrown it in there. But I kind of touched ground with it a little bit, but I want to continue that when we talk about the correct self-awareness rules of engagement 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 in context of projects and in context of doing businesses under the 5th cycle architectural reality programs. Thank you.